Hey guys, and welcome to the 12th installment of Updated Builds, a series of videos where I go back over Warframes that I already made one or more videos about and I bring their builds up to date because a lot of the build videos that I did for Warframes are very old and horrifically outdated. Now today we're finally gonna check out Vauban, who's been requested over and over again throughout the entire series. And the reason why I didn't do this video earlier is because I wanted to get Ember, Frost and Loki done before they're unvaulted tomorrow. So as always, I'm gonna show you all the builds that I use on Vauban and I switch between them based on what I'm doing. Now when it comes to Vauban, I only use two builds nowadays. The first one is all about Zappy Bois, so it's focused on Tesla grenades and it's just a fun build for low to mid-level missions. And the second build, the far more serious one, works with both Bastille and Vortex. And let's start it off with Zappy Bois, which is just a fun little build that I always have on Vauban because it's just a little bit of fun for low level missions. I'm using Energy Siphon as my aura, so my energy constantly ticks up and I can just throw grenades all over the place. Then I have Primed Continuity and Augur Message, so they actually last a decent amount of time. And then, so the grenades actually do some damage, we have Transient Fortitude and Power Drift. Then I'm using the Tesla Link Augment, which links all your Zappy Bois together and damage enemies if they cross that line, which is really nice, especially for the infested. After that, I'm running Streamline to make the grenades a little bit less expensive, and I have one defensive mod in the form of Vitality, but you can kind of use whatever you want. And finally, to top it all off, I am using Augur Reach and Stretch, which gives the grenades more range. Now as I've said already, this is just a fun little build for low to mid-level missions, so I mostly just use it for low-level alerts. It's more of a nostalgia thing really, because this is how I wanted to build Vauban when I first saw him in Mike B's Crash Course video way back in the day. I was like, oh my god, I can throw down little zappy turrets? Yes, I need it now. And I actually went in game and realized that I haven't seen a single Vauban alert, so I immediately bought him with Platinum, and I'm pretty sure it was my first Platinum purchase in the game. Now that doesn't mean the build isn't fun. It is fun to see your little Zappy Bois just electrocute everything that gets anywhere near them. It's even decent when it comes to crowd control, it just doesn't have the damage for high level missions and it doesn't have as much crowd control as Bastille and Vortex. But if you want a fun little build that you can take for a spin every time like a helmet alert pops up or something, it's pretty good. And I think that's enough about that, so let's move on to the second, more serious build. This one is also using Energy Siphon as its aura, but you don't have to use it yourself. It's just nice to constantly have some energy ticking up, so if you want to, you can use Corrosive Projection or something else. Then we have Primed Continuity, Constitution and Augur Message for a ton of duration, so both Bastille and Vortex last a decent amount of time, which is followed up by Cutting Drift and Stretch for some range. Now this is very much just a personal preference thing. I use this setup for Bastille because I'm one of those people that will rather throw down multiple smaller Bastilles than having one really big one. But if you'd rather have one really big Bastille, there is a variation of this setup I will show you at the end. Then to get a little bit of efficiency, I'm using Streamline. I didn't want to go with Reaching Expertise because that would reduce my duration, which is pretty bad, and I'm once again using Vitality. And the reason I'm using it here is because I only take this build versus the Grenier and the Infested, which inflict Slash and Toxin procs respectively, which both bypass shields, so getting more shields doesn't make an awful lot of sense here. And then comes the flexible portion of this build, so if I want to use Bastille, I'm gonna run the Repelling Bastille Augment, which allows you to essentially ignore Power Strength, because there's a limitation on how many enemies can be suspended in Bastille at any given time, which is affected by Power Strength. So normally what you would do is slap on a bunch of Power Strength so your Bastille can actually crowd control a decent amount of enemies, but what you can do instead is just put on the Augment, which makes it so that once your Bastille is at maximum capacity, it will repel all enemies that try to walk through it. Now they are not going to be crowd controlled by the Bastille, but they can't walk into it either. And the final mod, which you once again don't have to use if you don't want to, is Primed Flow, which just allows me to bank a ton of energy so I can just throw Bastilles left, right and center. So that's the setup I run if I want to use Bastille. If I want to use Vortex, however, I will take out the Repelling Bastille Augment and replace it with Augur Reach. This will give your Vortex more range, so it will cover a larger area. And finally, if you'd rather have one big Bastille over multiple smaller ones, you can replace Primed Flow with Augur Reach and put the Repelling Bastille Augment back. And all you're gonna lose over the original build is just some extra energy, which you don't necessarily need. It's more of a quality of life thing. Now let's talk about the Vortex version first. This one is not amazing versus the Corrupted, Grenier and Corpus, but it's amazing versus the Infested. The reason why it's not so great versus the other factions is because they tend to be more spread out, whereas if you're fighting the Infested, especially in something like a defense mission, you can just throw it on a cryopod and it will suck everything in. And all that's left to do is just AoE them down with something like the Lens, a Czar, or even a big melee weapon. This setup is just stupidly effective in endless missions because you can camp one spot and just throw in vortex after vortex after vortex and continuously AoE all the enemies down. Now, even though I've said that it's not amazing versus the other factions, it can still be effective, especially versus the Grenier, because what you can do is find a nice choke point and camp there. That's pretty much how we used to farm Void before they added nullifiers. And the Bastille version nowadays is unfortunately only really effective versus the Grenier, because the Infested have Ancient Disruptors, which will disrupt it, the Corpus have nullifiers, Combust Krampus units, Bursas, which will just shut it down, and the Corrupted have nullifiers as well. Now, that's not to say that it's not going to work against those factions, it very much will. It will just require you to be a little bit more active and take those units out as soon as you see them. This is a prime example of how DE can nerf something without nerfing it directly, because Bastille has been pretty much the same ever since it was first introduced. It just got a new augment, but the addition of new enemies made it a lot worse. But it's still really good, especially versus the Grenier, because a well-placed Bastille can pretty much shut down all the spawns on the map. Also, you don't have to use one or the other. You can use Bastille with Vortex, because while Vortex will not take priority over Bastille, so if you throw down Bastille and then you throw down Vortex next to it, it won't suck enemies out of the Bastille. But if you throw the Vortex into the Bastille, it will suck in the enemies that are currently crowd controlled by Bastille. So what you can do is throw down Bastille, which will crowd control them, and then throw Vortex into it, which will clump them together and let you AoE them much easier. Though you have to bear in mind that Bastille will always be bigger than Vortex, so if you throw it into the middle and you only have enemies on the edges of Bastille, it will probably not reach them. Now, as always, all the builds will work on the regular Vauban as well as Vauban Prime, though they may require a little bit more Forma on the standard version. And if you're not quite sure how to Forma yet, simply put on all the mods, and if they don't fit, look for the one with the highest capacity drain, Forma for that, and do that until all the mods fit. And I thank you very much for watching. As always, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.